Welcome to the Hemispheric Institute. My name is Marlene Ramirez Cancio, and I'm Associate Director of Arts and Media. I'm very, very excited to have you all here and to have Paloma back. Yes. So just for those of you who don't know, HEMI, the Hemispheric Institute, is an institute that connects artists, scholars, and activists from throughout the Americas to think through embodied practices, social justice, and we do it in a myriad ways. Go to hemisphericinstitute.org. I don't want to take time away, but this particular collaboration is twofold, and the latest iteration of it is Hemi Press, right? We're here to celebrate a journal. So my colleague Marcial Godoy and Managing Director of Hemi will introduce Hemi Press.
Hi, welcome, welcome. This is a happy occasion indeed. Look at that beautiful thing. Look at that. So anyway, I could speak for a long time, but I'll keep it very, very short. Hemi Press is the editorial imprint of the Hemispheric Institute. We create both platforms for digital publication in the arts and in the humanities and that have the capacity to feature the richness and the liveness of the artistic practices that we are concerned with, such as dance and many others. And this is an extraordinary collaboration between our program and our former artist in residence and our artist residency program and our digital publications. So the journal that you are seeing and that we're celebrating today is built on a platform that was created here, a customized platform created here at the Hemispheric Institute. Alexi Taylor and some of the other colleagues here that both built the platform and play a key role in making all of this stuff happen are here. And so we're all celebrating this big feat because we do this work on this side, on the Hemi Press side and on the digital side, to create tools and platforms to put at the disposal of wonderfully creative and powerful people in groups and collectives like yourselves. I think this is the culmination, and it just kind of really, it's why we do all this work and why we do platforms and why we insist that digital publications have to feature dance and be able to feature the body and performance and in a central way, both intellectually but also visually in an immersive manner. So we're here celebrating that, and we're here and celebrating you, and we're celebrating the collaboration. So I'll stop talking now and welcome again.
So I said twofold, right? So there's the Hemi Press, but then originally it was the Artist in Residence. And Paloma I met via Skype in December of 2012. Paloma was nominated by BAD, Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance, to be our Artist in Residence. And Paloma was an Artist in Residence from 2013 to 2015. And as part of that residency, I remember back in the day, Olamina was a baby. And you were like, you know, I want to do a digital journal or some journal. And I was like, well, there's our man Alexi is right there downstairs. You know, there's this thing called Tome on Hemi Press. Why don't you talk? And this was 2015. And so here we are. And I'm really glad to see something that comes from a specific time frame to be extended as Hemi family, and just you're here, and we had something very similar to this back in 2013, and here we are again, and hopefully it will continue, and you will continue working on our platform beyond the whatever constraints. So I just want to introduce Paloma. Now I'm going to read the bio. Paloma McGregor is a Caribbean-born, New York-based choreographer and organizer who has spent her career centering Black voices through collaborative process-based projects. In 2019, Paloma became the artistic director of BAX, Brooklyn Arts Exchange. Yes, a nearly 30-year-old organization dedicated to supporting artists at every phase of development. And I was there at a recent event, and somebody, you know, we were reflecting on the big shoes that Paloma has to fill for Mario Warshow, and she was like, no, I have my own shoes. Yes, and, not no. Yes, and I bring my own shoes. So this is amazing. So since 2008, she's been artistic director of Angela's Pulse, which she co-founded with her sister, director Patricia McGregor. But Paloma has received support from her work from the Surdna Foundation, the MAP Fund, Dance USA, Dance NYC, NISCA, etc., etc. And she was a BACS Air from 2014 to 2016 and launched Dancing While Black Fellowship at BACS during that time. So I just love that you turn something that's like, driving while black or things that are like terrible into this celebratory joy homecoming. So welcome back home, and I hope that you keep returning.
I'm like collecting the microphones here. Okay, great, because, okay, thank you. First, a big thanks to Hemi for being a space that allowed the fullness of who I both am and maybe want to be or aspire to be, to have a possibility to live and thrive. And by extension, the we that I always sort of feel like I walk with, to have the possibility to build and thrive. So in my introduction in the journal, I thank a lot of people. And so I encourage you to look at the introduction. This is a really big, this is like a for real launch party. Like we just launched it like a few minutes ago, like this real launch party. So I want to say that we'll be putting these up, but for those of you who are at home, this is like funny to talk to those of you who are at home, but you can access the journal at dwbjournal.angelaspulse.org. Great. Okay, I have a couple things to say that I've written down, but actually, Marlene, I feel like you threw me a lob to something I was thinking about earlier today about the title Dancing While Black, which is also the title of the platform that's been in existence since 2012. And for me, Dancing While Black as a title is both a recognition of the very real sense of limitation, I would say, at the sort of more benign end, and terror at the more at the other edge of possibility that that Black bodies navigate in this landscape, and not just in dance, but beyond. And dance is not separate from that. And then I would say also the language "dancing while black" for me also feels like an invitation toward liberation. Listen, I'm just dancing while black. I'm just doing this thing that I do, and also I am Black. And so I feel like that acknowledgement of those 2 points and the multiplicity of points that might connect to those points is always present in the platform, and I feel like in every gathering of us. So thank you for being here to contend with that multiplicity that exists both within the title and also within those of us who call ourselves Black and dancer. So this year we pushed to finish this journal, and in the same year, in 2019, the New York Times also put out the second round of a series it has undertaken recently to rectify its history of ignoring Black folks in its obituary section. The New York Times obituaries are quite significant as a historical archive of our times. And it's profound to read these stories, and I encourage you to do that. There's specifically, the second round was about ignoring Black folks, and the round before that was about ignoring women. I'm grateful for this white space, I'm grateful that this white space is contending to a degree with its wrongdoings historically. And at the same time, I thought we can't wait like 167 years for you to write about us, because when you do, who knows if you'll even get it right. So we got to write ourselves, and on our own terms and in our own words. And I'm excited tonight to be with a group of folks who've contributed to the visions and reflections that are a part of the journal. And some of them are video, some of them are poems, some of them are essays, some is transcription. We've opened our archives of Dancing While Black over the past 7 years, and we're sort of saying, oh, well, here are a couple of things that you might want to contend with, including the 2013 event, the Story Circles event. So we've transcribed that, and we also have the video there. So tonight we celebrate the beginning of a platform that aims to create space for us. And we call it inaugural because we plan to do it again. And we're excited about the possibilities that exist here at Hemi because the platform is responsive. So even doing this one journal has created a new set of ideas about what the next one might be and how the next platform might create even more space for creativity. So I want to say a big thank you to Purpose Productions, which has shepherded, like they were the doulas of this thing. Yeah. And that's a big team of people shepherded by Nia Austin. It's not just you, and also it is you. Yeah. So, because your name is Nia, so therefore, right. And we also want to practice a little call and response in this evening. Hey, Jonathan, welcome. Come on in. Your students are here, honey. They came in fierce. I was so excited. We already practiced call and response when we were trying to get y'all in this room. So I already know that y'all know how to do that, so that's great. We don't have to practice again. So I just want to say that we'll be doing a little talking like now, and hopefully mostly not me. And we'll be doing some doing, and you might be talking to your neighbor, and then I might ask you to move a little bit as you are able. We'll do a first round of talking, and then we might do a more open second round of talking. And then we'll toast. We'll say like, woohoo, we did it! And then we'll mingle a little bit, and that's sort of the format. And I've got people who are trying to keep me on time because I'm tangential and mercurial, so great. I'm basically here just to make Tommy laugh. Yeah. So this first grouping of folks that will be in conversation together are a group of folks who also have been organizing significantly in the field around Blackness. We represent, as Dr. BDG pointed out, 3 generations of organizing, which is really exciting to think about that conversation. And so I'd like to start with you all talking a little bit, each talking a little bit about the work you're doing and what it has, how this journal or this moment has anything to do intersectionally with that work. Yeah. I think we each have microphones, but also I can pass this around. Yeah. You ready? Come on.
Ashe. Just congratulations and thank you. It's funny that, yeah, okay, sorry. So I'm actually doing this performance later tonight, and my grandmother figures very prominently in it, and then she just came to me again because of what we're doing here, and launching this journal and kind of consecrating this possibility. So that's the thank you. It's funny, the entanglements. So I'm Tommy, and I teach at Duke University, and I direct a research collective called Slippage, Performance, Culture, and Technology. And Slippage is the umbrella that encompasses the CAD, the Collegium for African Diaspora Dance. And this is a group of 12, there's an executive committee of 12 people, and it was committed to writing, which is interesting. The first group of 12 gathered to think about how are we going to write ourselves for ourselves. So we're not trying to write ourselves into a history that doesn't care, that's disinterested. We're trying to write ourselves for ourselves, and what would that look like? And one of the first things, the e-board of CAD, and CAD produces a conference every 2 years, and it's a combination academic conference and dance workshops, and I think we've all been there, and it's incredible, so please come if you can. The next one's next year if you want. But one of the first things that was proposed was a journal. And I went, yeah, I don't want to do a journal because that's way too much work, It's too much work to try to keep producing. And, I'm happy to do a special topic issue, and we've done a couple of those, an anthology, and that's in press already. So those things are happening. But the journal is a different kind of, exercise and a different kind of lift. So, to kind of commend that lifting. And for the authors who are here and contributors, because it's a big deal to contribute to a journal. It's tough. But I want to kind of just to wrap up, entangle this. The thing that you brought up about the New York Times is so interesting because it's very true. And I wanted to tell a story about William Moore. And, you know, it's a show of hands thing. It's not a, you're not right or wrong, but William Moore. Yes. So here, there. William Moore, 1, 2, 3. William Moore, obituary from the New York Times, October 28th, 1992. William Moore, a critic and scholar who specialized in black dance, died on Saturday at his home in New York City. He was 59. He died of a heart attack. Mr. Moore, who was born in Manhattan, was influential in the careers of black modern dancers and dance companies, giving advice and helping them find performing space and money. He became involved in dance as a performer and critic in the 60s, later managing the dance companies of Elio Palmari and Joan Miller. He participated in the creation of the Association of Black Choreographers in 1967 and was affiliated with the Black Theater Alliance. He founded Dance Herald, a journal about black dance, in 1975. It ceased publication in 1979. So we have always these people who are there with us when we move these projects forward. And I guess that's what I thank you for, that we keep moving each other forward and remembering we can't rely on the times, but there's going to be some crumbs there that's going to help us remember some things we forgot. William Moore Ashe, he is here. And thank you for this project and the us of us writing ourselves towards us.
Yeah. So, and you know, I usually love to really prepare what I'm going to do, and I didn't. So, just thoughts coming up with what you began with, Paloma, about Dancing While Black. It hadn't even occurred to me the danger part of it, you know. In 2013, Paloma started 2012, Dancing While Black, at the same moment that I and Leela Aisha Jones and Soraya Corbett and Jamil Olawale Kosoko started the Coalition for Diasporan Scholars Moving, that I hope you all know about. You can find us on Facebook. And it's just like very interesting that we all started that motion in that moment in time. Obama was still president. I mean, we were still, we knew that the shit was hitting the fan because of what had happened from 2008, as soon as he came in. So we knew we were up against some really heavy dreig. So it's interesting that Tommy brings up Bill Moore, who many people will probably, you know, you could research this though, because with those the black tradition in American modern dance that was started at Duke by whoever the guy was who was the head of the American Dance Festival back then. People like Bill Moore and Donnie McHale and Pearl Primus and Zeta Allen and Joe Nash and I was just a baby. I was about 12. Okay, we're all invited to that kind of platform, which of course was put forth by, you know, the white world. And there were issues and there were tensions. And it wasn't a time when so much had gone down, starting, I feel, with the beginning of this millennium, 9/11, which just changed everything. And then, of course, 2008, which changed everything in a different way, and we had to move forward on our own. And I do feel that we've done this, you know, the Harlem Renaissance, you know, Williams and Walker doing operettas and beautiful cakewalk things that were really operas you know, at the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century, there have been these waves of us like taking it on and, you know, step by step finding our way through it. The beauty of it, and it's so interesting that the Dancing While Black only resonated to me as yes, you know, that the beauty of that then is, and I, who was in my 20s in the 1960s, you know, and the whole Black is Beautiful era then, the beauty of each of the movements is, in a sense, that we never lose it. It's just, and I don't talk DNA and all of that stuff, but it's a deep in the, like Richard Dawkins, the evolutionary biologist who talks about memes in a different kind of way. It's a meme that we possess even when we don't know that we have it. And it's so interesting walking off the train, coming here, and just walking into love. And we make the love all the time. I mean, I wrote something in there in the Black space, as did you, which is so incredible, you know, that whole yes, yes. And the idea that, you know, I got out of, and then I'll stop. I got out of the, that's why I usually write things, so I don't go on like this.
What a rare, beautiful opportunity.
That when I got out at Penn Station, they always change the way you get a taxi. So it's changed again, and it just said sort of pickup area, but there was no line. And it's like, WTF, I know there has to be a line, you know. Obviously, there's a line, you know. So I see a brother, and I go up to him, and I, you know, with the security thing on it, and I say, where's the taxi line? And he said, well, it's over there, and the other one with him said, here. He got me a taxi. Got me a taxi. You know, it was like some little black space that happened, you know, in a triangular way in that particular moment in time. He saw something, you know, he respected, you know, it was beautiful. So you're all beautiful. I was going to read a Sonia Sanchez poem on This Is Not a Small Voice, but I won't do it. But the poem ends talking about black genius, and that's what it is. Thank you, black geniuses, all of you.
Good evening. I am Maria Bauman Morales, and I'm absolutely honored to be a part of the journal and a part of this crew, and a part of this crew. And that's something that's been on my mind when you ask sort of what has our organizing been up to and what are maybe some of the overlaps and intersections with the DWB journal. Two things keep coming up for me in my organizing at large and also with Acre, artists co-creating real equity. And one of them is our interdependence and our connection and the fact that we're tethered to one another. And I felt that when you brought up William Moore. I did not know his name before I came in. And I feel so grateful that you shone a flashlight on a thread between us. And now I can acknowledge that thread, you know. And I think that's what you have been doing, is saying, we know we're connected. Can I help make a house, another house? There are some houses that hold us, and can I help make another one? And we've, you know, with Acre and my work with my dance company, MB Dance, so much of it is about thinking about what strings are connecting me to people who are no longer living. You know, I'm thinking about my dad right now, George Hill Jr., Bobo. If you knew him, you would have called him Bobo. And he is here, although he's not in a physical body. And I'm just thinking about Dancing While Black. He was Dancing While Black. He came up dancing when his mama would go to the club. She would bring him, and he would dance so well that people would give him money as a little boy. See, I get it from my dad. Right? So right. We ain't gonna talk about Felicia. That's one of my other names. But that's the thing, is that we are so connected. You know what I mean? That my daddy's here and is connected to the work that we're doing with MB Dance, and all of those folks are bringing their ancestors in, and we're all connected to each other, and Paloma is helping connect us. And when you say Full Out Felicia, I think of Urban Bush Women, which is where I got that nickname, which is how we're connected. And then we're connected through Acre, and then, you know, CDS. I mean, I'm just thinking about, right, and skeleton architecture. Thank you, Mama Charmaine. If we were to all name all of our connections in this room and put some strings between us, it would be the hugest web ever. So I'm thinking about our connections and our interdependence, and how my organizing and our organizing with Acre and MB Dance is based on that, is based on highlighting our relationships first and the issues second, that our connections are what holds us and what we have. And I think the second thing that I'm thinking of is, I think of it as spillage, but I'm thinking about slippage, and I'm contending with myself, like, what do those have in common? How are they different? And I'm just thinking about how this journal won't be held in a way. You know, it's video, it's transcription, it's so many different, it's not just people with letters behind their name, and it's some people with letters behind their name. It's people who write all the time, and it's people who don't write all the time. It's something you can look at on your phone, or, you know. I'm thinking about how hard it was to get us in this room, because we can't be contained. I'm just thinking about being a Black person means that, I think one of the things that it can mean is that it wasn't designed for us to fit here. And so I think when we're at our most fly, we say, well, I wouldn't study and fit in the first place, no way. You know, I'm going to get in here on my own time. I might ooze out of this chair, whatever. I'm going to bring some of my kids with me, my grandmother. You know what I mean? Like, all the ways to be confined, I think we find a way to squiggle on, right, subvert. So I'll just say, when you ask us, what does our organizing have to do with this journal? I'm thinking that, especially with Acre, with Artists Co-Creating Real Equity, a lot of our organizing is around how much of ourselves can we let be oozy and slippy, and love each other and respect each other and trust that the stuff that we have to do together will get done, that our beingness together doesn't depend on us conforming to only being a task or fulfilling a function or being a little nth of ourselves. And I really commend and thank you for being a model of that again and again and again, of interconnection, and also being bigger than the space would want you to be, and constantly saying, well, I have another idea, or I have something to contend with, or perhaps.
I have 10 minutes. See, that's why you need people to tell you when you're wrapping it up, but also then I'm going to be like, well, maybe we might like, just a little, perhaps we might. So I'm thinking about a few things right now, and I wasn't expecting to be so emotional tonight. I was like, oh, okay. All right, that's what's happening. It's a digital journal. So in some ways, you know, I'm a bit of a Luddite. Like, I'm not, you know, I don't have Instagram. My people know what the Instagram is, but I don't know what it is. I don't Twitter tweet. I don't. And it's a digital journal, which in some ways for me, which also I guess like the title Dancing While Black, has sort of a tension for me around, like, it's digital, which means the reach is actually quite broad. So we know we show up in person because our dance practice tells us how important it is to be there in your body. And we also know that there's people who can't make it in this room today or any of the days. And so the idea of being in a sharing beyond the confines of where our body might be able to show up feels important. It also feels like it's not a real thing because it's like digital, like it's, you know, it's a what? In the same way, I know, well, see, okay, Maria's talking about the ancestors, so I'm gonna come there, I'm gonna hold this. Can you hold it like this for me? Okay. because that's also something to talk about. And maybe a digital platform does, like we all do, contain the same material as the rest of the universe, you know, in that cosmic kind of way, like all the material in the universe is in all of us, is in the star, is in the earth, you know, potentially. But it also feels like connected to this thing we say about our dance practice, which I actually don't say anymore, which is that it's ephemeral. Because I don't believe that, because all of the dances I ever did are in my body. And that's not gone anywhere. That's right here, you know. So it might not look it might not be packaged in a certain way, and you might not be able to buy it and sell it. Might not anymore, but not today in this moment with all my people around me. So you know, I'm curious about contending with platforms, with like what platforms we call ours, what platforms are appropriate for how we think about this thing called black space, which is a conceptual platform. I'm wondering about that in your work, or what you're thinking about platforms, black space. I said a whole bunch of stuff. So platforms, get in where you fit in. Platforms, black space, ephemera, the universe, ancestors. Okay, since you said ancestors again, I'll just say today is the 1 month anniversary of the passing of John O'Neill. And that's a thing, you know? Yeah. And I actually dedicated the archival section of this work to him, which is part of the beauty of a digital platform, to be responsive, and also the beauty of a team who's going to let me give them notes just up to 3 hours ago, and know that it's a digital journal, so it's also can be shifting and changing, just like every time you do the same dance, it's never the same. Exactly. The same dance. And so I'm, you know, curious about what maybe your hopes, or what the potentials of these things are, this idea called black space or ephemera or ancestral connection, and also what some of the tensions are that come up in our work around cultivating such a thing, black space. Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Just really quickly, I'll try to be quick. It's so.
Don't worry about that right now. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so interesting though for me, the ways in which I see these two generations, you know, before me or after me, taking the lead in so many different ways, like taking the reins of production. So that's so really important. I mean, there had been, you know, you mentioned the magazine, The Feet, or I'm mentioning the magazine, The Feet, that Carol Johnson had started in the 60s, and trying back then to have your own, the means of talking criticism. And we're still fighting with issues around criticism. This platform that Paloma started, Goodbye Racist Critics, on the Facebook page. But what's interesting to me is that how many different directions people are taking it. It's no longer just that I need to find a way that I can perform, but it's I need to be, again, in terms of what you were mentioning, the relationships first and the function second, that I need to make a way in which the networks all are working towards the greater good of humanity, the greater good of my people. And with CDSM, Leela Aisha Jones has a platform called Flyground. Deneen Richburg, who had been in it, she's doing black figure skating in Minneapolis and has a company. You know, you have a company and are doing, as I am doing, undoing racism work, that we're all like working in these different channels. And I think it's really interesting and important that we're looking in terms of production and distribution and presenting as well, and not doing it just under the auspices of BAM, for example. Like I will be speaking at Paulette Brooks's Serendipity Festival in May in Leicester, England, when she puts on this whole thing herself, you know, again, obviously with help each year, but this whole idea that it has moved in some incredibly interesting ways that fit the mode of the time. Okay.
I'm thinking about the fact that we will always get it in and get the message across however we can. I'm thinking about the inside glance, way back in the day when our time was not our own. And if I need to give you a message, then it might be a look. I'm thinking about people sewing written material to the insides of their clothing to then disseminate it. I'm thinking about people spray painting, stenciling, you know, on the walls. I'm thinking about changing up the rhythm in the capoeira roda, you know, to say, yo, this is what's happening. So I think our messages, we black people here in the US have a long history of having coded and not so coded messaging. So for me, the platform is exciting, and there are so many ways that I can lift it up, and also feels to me immaterial. It's yet another way to get the message, for us to talk with one another. So I think there's no, in my opinion, better or worse way. But I am thinking of something that we were talking about. Tommy and I both have been part of a performance project called Let 'Em Move Ya, This Is a Formation. And it is the baby offering project of Dante Beecham and Jumatatu Poe, and a whole slew of amazing design collaborators and foremothers and forefathers of the form of J-Set. But we were talking about how in that field, in that realm, YouTube videos have been a real means of communication. No substitute for body-to-body contact. You know, that's the underpinning. But that, oh, well, can I learn that? Oh, I found out he is doing that. Somebody in Alabama, and maybe I'm in Jacksonville, and oh, well, what are they doing? What's their style? I like it or I don't like it, or, and that feels really, that to me feels like a real boon of having something online, is that we get to talk with one another. Not to say that having a computer is free. It's not. That's not the case. But at this point, I think the internet is so ubiquitous that I appreciate the kind of flowering possibilities. It just reminds me of, it's hard to go for something that you don't know. Jawale Zahler often says, go for what you know. And speaking of urban bushwomen, I remember being a high school dance student and being one of very, very few, let alone black, very few people of color dancing. And I was like doing my best and always feeling a little bit like a bull in the china shop. And then Catalina Garcia from Urban Bushwomen at the time came to my high school in Jacksonville, Florida. And the world opened up to me. All of a sudden I felt like, oh, I don't just stick out in a bad way, which is kind of what was happening. I was like trying my best, but it's like, she's doing extra, whatever. I'm like her and she's like me. You know, and then I remember then I went to the library at my high school, I remember. And I said, oh, she comes from this company called Urban Bushwomen. Are they a thing? And I looked in the library and I found them in a book about dance. And I went home and I said, Mom, they're a real company. They're in a book, you know. True story. So my point is, my highest hope, one of my hopes for this journal, is that it can be that world opener for somebody who doesn't live in a place where there's skeleton architecture and Let 'Em Move Ya, This Is a Formation and everything else. But perhaps it's like you do a high school report for your dance class, and then you do some Google searching. You go, dancing while they said what? Oh, who? Oh, let me look up that. Oh, this is legit. Oh, I could, you know. So I don't think there's a better or worse way, but I am excited that this journal is online as a platform, so that it may never replace our body to body. I mean, speaking of Baba John, we always going to tell our stories person to person, and yet this is another way to share our stories across distance, I would think.
Be brief, but I just hope we can, thinking about Let Him Move You and Jay said, and we can embrace our erotic lives as dancers and intentional movers, and our queer bodies and our non-binary bodies and our polyamorous souls and selves. Many of us move to dance because we're navigating these energies, and we have a special thing to share with each other. So to let ourselves be gay and queer and same gender loving, and let that space keep opening out, because it's how a lot of us get here, and somehow it falls off, and we get very like, okay, I'm not going to write about that or talk about that, but it's it's so important, and we're here, and so that's the hope, is to keep opening these spaces out for the for the kids to find themselves, as you say, but also for us to find ourselves as we continue on our very complex paths of presentation and relationship and joy, love, erotic cities. I just watched Janelle Monet's Dirty Computer, and I was like, yes, yes. So finding our ways into these, even as we're documenting and historicizing and telling stories to each other, keeping the spaces queer, letting the spaces keep opening out.
Two just notes inside this, since Jumatatu's been brought up twice, and Jumatatu has an essay in the journal, and I'll say, and then the other thing that I wrote down for myself to say was also thinking now, as you're talking about the platform being digital and our diaspora, like we are everywhere, and some of that was not by choice. Well, a lot of that was not by choice, but here we are, and so how do we make some spaces? This idea of the thread, like how do we shine the light on the thread, and also how do we make our own thread? And so I'm really curious and interested in that as a possibility for this space. And I'll say that this is, again, inaugural, like means that we're going to do it again. And so I have a deep curiosity about, I think you've already started to push this, like I have a deep curiosity about how the community pushes the platform. We started this by gathering 10 people who could show up for a meeting. And we specifically invited Black women and gender nonconforming folks to be at the center of that circle. And then they curated out in a myriad directions, because that's what we do. But I'd be curious about naming like things out loud that would be hopes, aspirations, like the naming of it also creates a possibility, an imperative, many other things along that spectrum. Yeah, if you feel so moved or comfortable enough. Yeah, and then we'll all move and talk a bit. I see you. Yeah.
You see, okay. Okay. Hey. So yes. So embracing a kind of self that's connected and that is curious about the other possibility, which maybe is a way to say queer. Everybody doesn't need to say queer, same gender loving, gay. However we need to say that or not language it, but staying in that place where it keeps allowing itself to slip, spill, and transgress.
A highest hope, a birthday wish that I have for this journal is that along the same lines, it continues to slip and spill, such that I'm thinking specifically around people who were not one of the original contributors, having a space to literally comment, discourse, disagree, talk, chop it up, say, look at my YouTube channel, all of that.
I'm not sure, because this, what I've seen of the inaugural and the draft of it, it does seem so beautifully of a piece. It's like very, in many ways it is thought out, clearly thought out, sections, etc. Question being then, is there a way when you're talking about slippage or sliding to let that happen if you are not doing the journal more than, say, twice a year? You know, like how, you know, because what Maria is suggesting, this kind of way of commenting, calling and responding, then it becomes an issue of how to make that happen with all of the different things that each of us is doing, you know. And I mean, I think that would be wonderful. So maybe the question is, would there be another thing like that you would do some forum that wouldn't be the journal that would allow people to comment? Like I spent some time in Oslo lately with Thomas Taloa Presto, who, you know, talking about that we're everywhere. You know, he invited me up there because he's doing his MFA and the people don't even understand, you know, and nobody had read any of my stuff. And I said, bring me up and I'll just show them, you know. And he has a company there. He's, you know, the Tabanca company. Tabanco means resistance. And the company is made up of Norwegians who are Trinidadian, half Cuban, half Norwegian, Ugandan, Nigerian, everything. And they're all Norwegian citizens. I mean, we are everywhere. And you know, then the issues that they are going through as diasporan in Scandinavia, and he does things in Sweden, etc. Those issues are very interesting and are appended to how we go through it in a very different kind of way. I mean, I would love for those voices and people like Antoinette Stines, you know, people in the Caribbean, and Koulibaly, Burkina Faso. You know, I want to hear from those voices, and maybe it's not in the formality of the journal, but in an appendage of the journal that would somehow be this kind of slipping and a sliding. You know?
Yes, yes, we need that. Thank you.
Yeah, I got it now. Thank you. That's great, because this year, Angelus Pulse, which is the kind of what my work, this is my mom also, is the umbrella under which I do all my work, is on a pause year, because last year I was in a meat grinder, I felt like I did so many things, I did all the things at their most. Talk about full out Felicia, it was a full out Felicia year, yeah. Yeah. And a nickname is born. You were here. So I feel like I feel like there's I've been doing a lot of thinking about centering, and also like how we hold spaces as organizers, and when we don't have to be in the center of those spaces. And so we've been doing a lot of, our pause year has been about reflecting with the communities who have assembled to push forward the work that Angelus Pulse has taken on, to think about how Angelus Pulse can serve the many visions that live among those folks, that also do not require any one of us to hold the space all the time. So what you all are bringing up also feels so in keeping with that, like an editorial, you know, like, don't worry, I'm gonna call you in a second, you know, about, you know, like, oh, great, you have this idea, like, how could we support, like, centering this idea? Who would need to show up? What kind of support can we give to that as a thing? You know, this idea of, like, how do we, pull folks in, where a digital journal does have this global reach, but how does the content reflect the global nature of that journal? You know, this is a very, I mean, the content, as you'll read, even though I'm from the Caribbean, is very US based. I live here, this is where we are at, this is what we're contending with right now. It's also very New York based, which is, you know, part of the nature of being in this space. And so how can the fact of the digital push us to even think about how we assemble ourselves and who assembles at any given time to be centered. So thank you for all of that. Before we take a pause, can you read this poem now?
Okay.
I mean, she said she was going to read it before the thing, and then...
And it's interesting because you know what, I'm going to stand.
Yes.
For the live streaming.
Oh, no, but if you're, no, for your body, yes, if your body needs it, we'll figure it out. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, how this happened at the last IABD, usually before I open my session about the Coalition for Diasporan Scholars Moving, and I have various people talk about their issues, I usually read some kind of poem by a woman, Maya Angelou, Audre Lorde. This year it was Tracy Smith. I've done Tracy. And this year it was something that I found that was really wonderful by Sonia Sanchez. And it's from the book Wounded in the House of a Friend. And since that, Dawn Marie Bazemore, who had been on the panel this year, really incredible story she told, is doing a new piece for Danko, and has asked me to read the poem in the piece. So I'm going to be on the Danko stage. So this is called This Is Not a Small Voice. This is not a small voice, you hear. You hear? You hear? You hear. This is a large voice coming out of these cities. This is the voice of Latanya, Kadisha, Shaniqua. This is the voice of Antoine, Daryl, Shaquille, Maria, Tommy, Nia, Paloma, Oshana. Running over waters, navigating the halls of our schools, spilling out on the corners of our cities, and no epitaphs spill out of their river mouths. This is not a small love you hear. This is a large love, a passion for kissing learning on its face. This is a love that crowns the feet with hands, that nourishes, conceives, feels the water sails, mends the children, folds them inside our history, where they toast more than the flesh, where they suck the bones of the alphabet and spit out closed vowels. This is a love colored with iron and lace. This is a love initialed Black Genius. Okay.
And she wasn't going to do that. Yeah. So, yeah. So I want to thank this group of folks for assembling to talk a little bit about this and pepper the space. And I know Tommy has to go because Tommy is in a performance in like just a little while. So, but like agreed to come anyway. Yeah. Talk about being in all the places and yeah. So, so thank you. I know you have to slip out. Yeah. We're gonna take. I would like us to take. Just a couple minutes to turn to someone who's near you and talk about what's on top for you, or what are you thinking or dreaming, or what's coming up, what are you excited about, you know? And if it's not just two, it could be 3 people, whatever, but you're gonna have like a amount of time, because Sydney is gonna do the time, and that means it's gonna be for real. So let's take like 3 minutes to just be in this conversation. It doesn't, yeah, for yourselves, yeah, go.
Right, exactly. So this is networks and this is for our distribution. Passwords on it. And I invite you again to think of in this archive that will be worldwide, that will be world to be translated into Spanish. Yeah. So sites you recognize into the worldwide, into the different aspects are part of the open world. You'll be here. So as a part of it, to think about your archive and other archives as well, there's not one exchange, but there's also it's a perpetuity and it's a non-exclusive agreement. So people can put on 50 different archives if they want. So it's just literally for historical preservation and community online access without any cost for the outside. So just again, just to continue thinking about spaces that allow for representation, historical reality, or something like that. Like, so just know that and also for white, which is an artist program that gets to see some folks from Africa on the web, and they've seen like somebody cares about music. So just it's all connected, and so just continue thinking. So before you leave, be in your world, think about like who are some artists that should be historically preserved, whether or not our labor finishes on the side, the archives keep going. So just about the labor of the journal, like sometimes they continue their but this would be the corner. So just to leave that, that's what's present. Yeah, thank you for being here.
Welcome back. Great. So moving just quickly on, you're going to stay with your person, but in as much as you're comfortable, as your body is able, you and your person are going to each create a short movement that kind of synthesizes something about your conversation. Yeah? Yeah? You've got like 30 seconds. Go. So you can stand to do this, but if you're more comfortable in your chair, we've been sitting a while, so standing might feel good. You can spread out a little bit. Make sure you know what it is, because you might have to show it. Okay, that's great. That was like 2 times 30 seconds. So, really good. When I say don't, you say sit down. Don't. Don't. Great. So we're going to go around the room, and we're just going to like in sections, just with our crew of people. If you were, okay, y'all, choreography's time is over. It's time for showing. So, however you did your movement is how you can show it. And let's just share as like sections, like this section here we'll share just as a group. And if you finish before other groups in your section, just like hold your last thing so we can see the wave of you all. And then let's have like, wow, y'all came in thick. Thank y'all, thank you, I appreciate you. Good job, Jonathan. So let's have like a section that ends right here-ish. And like you figure out how you do that. Yeah, great. And then this group will show and share. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Great, it'll be like a wave. All right. You're first. What? Yeah, it's that whole section. This whole section right here. Ready? Okay. Yeah, just do it. Everybody together. Okay, because we know our bodies have information, right? And so it's not always like we don't always have to say the thing this way. I think I want just a couple of reflections from your conversations, and could we start with 2 other journal contributors who agreed to be a part of the speaking tonight? One of whom is out there, Jonathan and Melanie. Could we start with like a few like you can be our models of reflecting out something from your conversation? Great. Also, Jay Bowie's in the journal.
Yes, Jay Bowie in the journal. So I'm just gonna repeat something Jay said earlier. Actually, I can't even because I don't remember. But it was something about sexy and social media. So that's what we're gonna. Yes.
That's the next word.
Okay, go ahead.
I was saying that I believe that Dancing While Black journal or a digital journal can have a sexy social media presence. I'm just saying it. All the and with the comments and then the back and the forth and the what is it? The call and the response.
That sounds good, like a young people's committee.
Yes, yes.
I'm for that. I'll find you some money. You can do it.
I was having a lovely conversation with my partner, but they disappeared. But that's how it is sometimes. And yeah, I feel like what was definitely resonating, they, who is also affiliated with the photographer who is here this evening, have both found themselves here kind of without having any history to any person in this space or any connection to what thematically is happening, which is kind of lovely because that also shows more inroads to what's happening right now. And also, they were very provoked by what was happening, as I'm provoked by what's happening. And it just reveals the way that the things are resonating in multiple forms for those who know it and those who don't. So, yeah, that's what I got.
Let's have a few more. So let's just keep reflecting a few things out that came up. And I want to say that actually, we got the recommendation for Mark as a photographer from Project Potluck.
Oh, wow.
Which is actually an organizing tool of people of color that came directly out of the post-election, last presidential election season, and someone started gathering on there Black and POC photographers, videographers, and so we had started kind of putting together a spreadsheet, and so we're like, great, more spread, and then it turned out that you were available. So yeah. So we approached through that, which is not. It's like a thread, and it's like, well, who are we? What are we doing here? You know, it's like we know we're kinfolk because of that, and so then also trusting that those kinship lines will find their way to manifest whatever the meaning is between us. So we're excited to see the photos also. Okay. What's that? Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah, great. So this came out of what we just talked about. So
this is something I was thinking about as Maria was speaking about being so moved in college about seeing urban bushwomen. That in 2013, while Paloma was an artist in residence, and also through the connections of Roberta Uno, a very important former funder at the Ford Foundation, Jowl is an urban bushwomen's video collection. Their entire video archive began the process of being historically preserved here at Hemi. So complete historical preservation and free online access and circulation. It's not behind a password. It's not behind some restricted thing. And not only that, but they keep the copyright, and there's nothing bought or sold. It's free for them forever and for the world. Also, each blurb, to Paloma's point about going worldwide and what are the hopes, since we're an America's wide network, each blurb of each work is translated into Spanish and Portuguese, so it's teachable across borders. I invite, again now and very much in public, as I've done in private many times, Paloma, or anybody here who has a video collection that they would like, yes, oh yes, to preserve historically with no copyright issue. The things are returned back. So thinking about legacy, thinking about how networks work, how who knows who, and how we can help each other. This is not only historically preserved, but made to be put into circulation. And I remember that some folks here also, including Maria's wife and Eric and other folks, and Melanie, in a program called Emerge NYC, which we're in the finalist selection process now, for emerging artists. And so in that program, I have observed, much like you in college, folks weeping, looking at HIDVL, at Hemispheric Institute Digital Video Library, saying, someone cares about this? Someone cares enough to preserve this historically and to make it searchable through all the universities worldwide through a thing called WorldCat. So it's not a local little thing. It's like, poof. So I invite you all to think in your network way from now and in years to come. What are some video archives that do three things? They're hemispheric, which means they're part of this hemisphere. Perhaps not so good for someone like in Germany or something, but in the Americas, that do performance and politics. That can mean so many things. And much in the same way that this amazing journal is doing, we can also incorporate those things and have happen what's happened to you and what's now happening to this for other folks. So anyway, just thinking through networks in that way. Give your name. Oh, my name is Marlene Ramirez Cancio. You can email me at hemi, H-E-M-I, at nyu.edu. I'm associate director here, so it's pretty easy. Thank you.
I see you have this microphone in your hands. You ready to say something?
I do.
Yeah, come on.
So Maria mentioned before about like the web, and that really resonated with me. I feel like as of late I've been realizing how tangible that web is, because I saw Charmaine at the Ailey 2 performance last night, and it's like she used to work at my old studio, Sharon Miller Academy of the Performing Arts. So it's like interesting to see how you keep seeing the same faces. And I did a workshop at Ailey with Jawole, then saw Urban Bushwoman, and now she's being mentioned here. So it's really important to me to like feel connected. So I'm hearing all of these names and I may not know them, but I want to take those names back with me and educate myself about them to continue and bring it forward, and then maybe to share it with other people so that the network can keep growing and just have that sense of being home away from home.
Yes, home away from home. Other reflections out of your conversations? We'll just take a couple more. Yeah. Anyone? It doesn't have to be something you said, something somebody else said. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Is this okay? So my sis Morgan and I had a great discussion about how we're just feeling a lot of feelings. You know, it's like I'm black, I'm an artist, I'm a woman, and I've been these things my whole life. I was born these things. But we were saying it's not until recently that we've been confronted with these spaces and these environments where we can be in conversation with the intersectionality of all of those things and be open to the possibility of what that means and what that breeds. And it's just overwhelming. You know, I'm feeling so loved and just like, it's beautiful. I love it. It's special.
Of course. This might be the last word right here.
Stop it. And you know you don't need nobody.
You're funny. I heard you talked about me when I went away to get a snack. Yes, hallelujah. So I used to teach that class over there. And a million thousand years ago, and they always had to read Dr. Brenda's work. I'm Charmaine, for those. But the thing that I wanted to add to all of this is that the class started with Baba Joe Nash, and who else? And then Tommy DeFranz taught the class, and then I taught it. Oh, I'm not on any of the social media things, so this is why I turn my face all the time. You'll never find me on social media. So the class has been passed down to so many people, and Zita taught it last year, I think. Zita Allen taught it last year. And I still do some consulting work, but they're all Ailey babies. And hug up on Jonathan, because Jonathan got it all and then some. Legacy. That was not the last word.
You're right, because I have to say thank you all. Oh, no, you're going to say something? No. Okay. I just want to say thank you all for coming. This is a circle that actually forms itself over and over again. So, you know, this is not the only time to be in this circle, and it's not the only moment when you might be thinking about the circles that you want to make happen in space. And you got a posse of people here that you came with, so, you know, begin where we are also, like, oh, I'm here, so I will begin. You know, Dancing While Black as a platform came out of my own just personal need. And I'm speaking this to you personally just because I feel so powerfully like what you said, and I'm also feeling a lot tonight. It was what I needed. I had been in this company for 6 years where every day was Black intergenerational, experimental, process-based, you know, women-centered practice. Every day, that was my work. I got paid to do that. So, but not everybody in this landscape is going to get to find their workspace is that kind of space. It's just the nature of yeah, it's just true that we might not always get paid to be in those spaces, but it doesn't mean we can't make them. So when that time was over, okay, well, where are my people? And, you know, and institutions have an interest in us for finite periods of time, often.
Right.
And so we're in a period of, it seems like, great abundance for us, but we are always abundant. Whether the institutions want to like give us something for that or not is kind of inconsequential, although still give us our stuff. It's ours anyway. So I just say that to say, like, we can also, everyone in this room can also be organizing your own spaces, whatever makes meaning for you. I feel like that's the start of it. Like, oh, I need to have this space. And if it's not here, what can I do? Oh, Hemispheric Institute, I have a, you know, artist in residency here. That means I have space, and also they're NYU. So you can like invite people and they will come because it's at NYU, you know? And so like Hemispheric Institute carves out their own, like what I think of as like black space inside of white space. And POC space, Latinx space, queer space, you know, I mean, I feel like there's a way in which then we start to figure out, oh, that means I can bring my people. And then you bring your people. And then you just keep bringing your people, and then your people are bringing you, like then your people are telling you, this is what we need to do, and then pretty soon it's just a circle again. Yeah. See, I knew it. If I talk long enough. So let's keep making the circles, and also Charmaine's going to give us a side note.
Do they still have to write that last 10 page? You have it. Okay, well, whatever your final thing is, BFA? Yeah. Whatever your final thing is, you can write it about this.
Or.
The Dance Union podcast, hosted by myself and Jay Bowie. Check it out.
I mean,
yes.
Wait, Lisa had one last thing.
You know, I wasn't going to say anything because I am grateful to be here, and I knew I was going to see. My name is Lisa Yancey, and I used to be a dancer and choreographer, and I grew up dancing, and I remember the moment. I'm from Atlanta, and I remember the moment when I saw Ailey and Urban Bush Women and was like, my calves aren't abnormal. My muscles, they're not supposed to be anorexic. My body is real, and I live in a world where I do a lot of work around racial equity, impact investing, strategy. I live and made a choice, and it was a really difficult divorce from dance. I made a divorce from dance. I danced all the way through law school. In fact, I went to law school not because I wanted to go to law school, it's because I was still dancing and I wasn't sure how I was going to live my life. And I tell people all the time that all of my choices and my discipline came from dance. Every single thing that I do in my life in building a company that's focusing on black women entrepreneurs and wealth building and scale, and all of that comes from dance. And so I wasn't going to say anything, and I'm grateful for, I didn't even know about this until a few hours ago, actually. Paloma was like, by the way, and I was like, I'm going to try to pull myself away from this computer, writing a strategic plan for the car center in Detroit. And I feel like I'm among my people in a different kind of way because it's dance. And I'm often in entrepreneurship, strategy, philanthropy. And you make mountains move. Stop it. But I live in that world, and I haven't been among a lot of dancers in the dance world, but we hold all these identities. And so when I see like conversations and the body is like moving, I'm just like, oh. And when Paloma was like, it's always in your body, it's like, oh. And people are like, well, how do you get people so excited? I'm like, because it's dance, and we show up in all of ourselves. So I am I'm just so grateful. I was about to text one of my business partners in Seattle to say that as we're building and preparing for this, I'm speaking at an impact investing conference out in Seattle next week or whenever the 25th is, and we were talking about this, and I'm like, we're organizers. Like, we're organizing unapologetically in our clarity of our blackness, and it is a dance every single day. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for, thank you, because this is a gift that I didn't know I was going to get. I knew I was going to see faces, because I've been doing this for a while, that were familiar, but I didn't know that I was going to be able to touch family from a movement, organizing, change space where the edges are not defined by others at all, ever, and that you are fully your whole self in all of its ubiquity. And I'm just really grateful and moved. And thank you so much.
Okay, y'all. So let's go get more familial with one another. There's refreshments outside. There's drinks outside. We can like talk more casually, and then we have to leave at a certain time. And maybe I'll do a call and response for that. And but I just want to also put back out there, because the journal content is, this was a real launch, y'all, right? We just launched it, like right when y'all walked in, we launched it. So, so the journal is dwbjournal.angelaspulse.org. And yeah, enjoy and do whatever y'all gonna do on the social media sexy thing. That's good. I'll bring my heels, and then, yeah, great. Love you guys. We'll circle again soon. Please sign up to get Angela's Pulse stuff. We don't send out a bunch of stuff, but we just keep you up to like what we're doing. Thank you for being here. It's an important day for us, and I'm glad you're here.
If you're reading the journal, make sure that you take a screenshot on your phone and post it on the social media of an article that you really like or something on there, tagging and or putting the link somewhere. Don't put it on Instagram, because you can't hit the link unless it's in your bio. Then you got to say link in bio. Children, you understand? Not children, young adults, you understand, okay?
I'm going to interrupt because we want to take a big group photo of everybody. Come this way, right here, before Dr. BDG has to leave. So swiftly for her sake. She's trying to catch a train home. The background is the journal, I think. Let's go. Let's all come and we'll take the picture, and then we'll talk later. Because we got to know that we were all here. This is how we would know, oh, we were all here that day that we did that thing. Yeah? We too often rely on 5 people's cell phones to take this picture. We have a professional photographer to take this picture rather than 5 people on their cell phones. Yeah, so let's do it. Let's all, Charmaine Warren. This is not going on social media. It's not a cell phone. This is the archive. Come here. Come here, please. Come on. This is just for everybody. This is our archive. This is how we know who showed up when y'all talking about y'all don't know who that person is. Do you want to be in the center? I'm okay. I'm in the center.
2, 1.
Yay! Nice hustle, y'all. Good improvising. Yeah, okay.
Young adults.
Yeah, this is still on.
Hello.
I'm 21.
Really happy.
Yeah. And I'm sorry we didn't do like a formal, it was like already felt like, yeah.